Well, first, I want to thank you all for being here. Obviously, we've had some very productive meetings today dealing with both the area of commerce, the fishing industry, and also with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Napolitano. And I want to tell you that while we're dealing with a very difficult situation, at the same time, I think it's a situation where all parties are brought to bear. You know, this is an all-hands-on-deck reaction from the federal, state, local level, and the private sector. As you are aware, BP is the responsible party, but we're being a responsible country and doing everything that we can, both from the government side and the private sector side, to address this issue as best we possibly can. Nobody anticipated that something like this would occur, but obviously it has. We want to protect, from a Florida perspective, our beautiful beaches, our fishing industry, and the tourist industry, as well as our hotels and restaurants. And as you can see today, it's a beautiful day in Florida. The beaches are clean and the fish are biting, but we want to be prepared as this continues to approach us. The weather's been very good to us, and we're grateful to God for that. But we also have to be realistic and be prepared for the worst and certainly hope for the best. With that, I'd like to again thank Secretary Napolitano for coming down today, being with us here in Florida, as well as the others that have come. Secretary Locke, thank you from a commerce perspective for taking the time to be with us too, and CFO Sink, as well as Captain Poulin from the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has been incredibly helpful as the lead agency on this. We're very, very grateful to you, sir, for what you have done. This is the fourth time I've been here to the Panhandle in the affected area since it occurred, and the Coast Guard has been extraordinary. With that, Secretary Napolitano with Homeland Security, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Governor Crist, and I'm here today to provide an update on information concerning the BP oil spill and the coordinated steps being taken to minimize its effects. This administration has been on the ground leading a coordinated, proactive response since the first day, continuously anticipating and planning for a worst-case scenario. We will continue to do everything we can to ensure that vital response assets, personnel, and equipment are efficiently deployed and coordinated. Now, this is the second time in the past 2 weeks that I have been to the Gulf to examine response efforts on the ground. I was with Secretary Salazar and Administrator Jackson just last week. The President was here on Sunday to inspect efforts himself. Earlier today, I was at the staging area in Biloxi. I think this underscores what Governor Crist just said, the all-hands-on-deck approach response to this unique and still evolving disaster. We have been in constant contact with state and local leaders. We greatly appreciate their partnership. We are deploying boom to protect shoreline and wildlife. We're containing the oil with chemical dispersants. We are overseeing BP, the responsible party, in its efforts to plug the leaks in its sunken rig. Let me provide for you an idea of the scale of the national response. More than 10,000 personnel are currently here in the Gulf region, responding in order to protect the shoreline and wildlife. Nearly 270 vessels are responding at the site of the spill. These include skimmers, tugs, barges, and recovery vessels to assist in containment and cleanup efforts. This is in addition to dozens of aircraft, remotely operated vehicles, and several mobile offshore drilling units. Over 60,000 feet of protective boom have been deployed to date off the coast of Florida, protecting 46 environmentally sensitive areas. This is part of the more than 100 miles of boom that have been deployed around the Gulf. Aircraft are constantly monitoring the integrity of the boom and are directing pollution response teams to make necessary adjustments to the line. More than 1.8 million gallons of oily water have now been removed. More than 253,000 gallons of dispersants have been deployed, and an additional 317,000 gallons are available. 9 staging areas have been set up to protect vital shoreline in the potentially affected Gulf Coast states, including right here. On May 5th, a command center was stood up at Coast Guard Sector St. Petersburg, making it the first Florida command post. Thousands of volunteers are assisting in the response effort to date. This administration has also approved the use for the National Guard to help in this effort, including up to 2,500 Guard members right here in Florida. I know that some people wonder what they can do to help. Those interested in supporting the response effort can call 1-866-448-5816. 1-866-448-5816. You can also go to deepwaterhorizonresponse.com, deepwaterhorizonresponse.com, and click on volunteer. If you're a fisherman, for example, we perhaps could use your help to supplement the deployment of more boom. British Petroleum is the responsible party for this oil spill. It is required to pay the costs of the cleanup. Impacted businesses and individuals can make claims to BP. There is a claim line at 1-800-440-0858, 1-800-440-0858 to file claims. And we are working to monitor and make sure that that claims process goes smoothly. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of the men and women on the ground and at sea in the Gulf region for their continuing hard work. It has been an amazing effort. We are facing an evolving situation. The possibility remains that the BP oil spill could turn into an unprecedented environmental disaster. But everyone should know that the federal government is responding with full force, with, as the governor said, all hands on deck to aid the responsible party, BP, in stopping the leak and in limiting the impact of the disaster on the environment, on public health, and on the economy. I'd like to turn things over now to Secretary Locke, and then we'll answer some questions. Secretary?
Thank you very much, Secretary Napolitano, for your incredible leadership. I've worked with Secretary Napolitano when we were both governors, she of Arizona and myself of Washington State, and it's been very, very impressive to have her leading the federal response. I also want to thank Governor Crist for his participation on these daily conference calls that we've had coordinating federal and state and local response, and to know how busy you are and to have you so actively engaged is very, very impressive. I want to let you know that we at the Department of Commerce have been part of that all-hands-on-deck response. In fact, Department of Commerce is here for two reasons. We have NOAA, which is part of the Department of Commerce. NOAA was actually on the scene within hours after the explosion on the oil platform. We actually have an oil response war room that is situated in Seattle, Washington. It's been up and running ever since the explosion. It's been staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, specifically focusing on this. And the people at NOAA have been providing all of the cleanup and protection strategies by way of science, all the satellite imagery to track the spill, all the weather forecast, as well as forecasting of the currents, and scientific analysis as it relates to marine animals and the impact on the fishery resources. And we will continue to be involved in this for years to come. On Sunday, we announced a 10-day emergency fish closure of the affected parts of the Gulf. And it was to send a signal to the American public that the seafood that is still being harvested from the remaining parts of the Gulf, and it's really the majority of the Gulf, and the impacted area is still a minute but a minority part of the Gulf region, but that whatever seafood is being harvested is in fact safe to consume, whether it's on the stores, your supermarket shelves, or in the restaurants, and that our utmost priority is protecting the health and safety of the American consuming public. But there is no risk in eating any of the seafood that is now being harvested from the Gulf in those areas that have remained open. We also want to say that the majority of the Gulf area is still open for fishing, and that includes charter fishing. But also on Monday, we sent our economic development teams down here to the Gulf area to begin reaching out to local officials, state officials, and businesses to begin the economic assessment of the financial impact from the spill. We have mobilized all of our resources because we understand that the livelihoods are on the line. Livelihoods of a whole host of different industries and sectors, not just the fishermen, but the seafood processors, the truckers, the waiters at restaurants, and the staff at hotels, everyone who depends on a thriving Gulf ecosystem, including tourism. Helping the people of the Gulf communities is a job of a responsive and responsible federal government. And while we take these steps, we do so with the understanding that ultimately BP is responsible for making this region whole, environmentally and economically. But it's our promise as part of the federal government to do all we can to assist in the recovery and to minimize the damage, both ecologically and economically. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.